Welcome everyone here to this meeting, and what I'll start off with is for that first public comment period, for those who would like to call in, pardon me, wait, that's what they had here. Roll call. Sorry, I'll be all right today. It was a long drive. What can I say? Okay, let's please do a roll call. Sorry about that. I'm usually organized.
Chair Brager.
Here.
Vice Chair Del Carlo.
Here.
Regent Bautista. Regent Boylan.
Aye.
Regent Brooks.
Here.
We do have a quorum.
Okay, we're going to move on. It does say Pledge of Allegiance, but I was told we're going to do that at our main board meeting, so I don't want anyone to think I'm forgetting something. We will go on to our first public comment, and I will state for those who would like to call in and offer public comment, please dial 669-444-9171 and enter the meeting ID of 933-5568-7402. Another set of numbers for the password code 555555. Is there any public comment in Elko?
There is none at this time.
Thank you. Is there any public comment in Reno? Hearing none. Is there any public comment here in Nevada State University and Las Vegas? Henderson, North Las Vegas. No, I'll be okay. Carol's like, why is Susan chairing? No, I have chaired many times, by the way. I just need some levity because. Okay, SCS, is there any public comment on the phone?
There's no callers at this time.
Thank you very much. We will then continue on to, I have the wrong one here. Where did it go? This says, no, really, I had it. It says for Amy. I had mine. Sorry, everybody. I'm usually very, very organized for chairing. Do you have yours just for a moment? Okay, consent items. We have item 2A, the minutes to consider for the approval of the December 4th, 2024 meeting. Do I have a motion for that or any? Thank you. A motion by Regent Del Carlo. No, I've got it. Del Carlo. Is there a second? Second by Regent Brooks. All those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. 2B, follow-up special course and differential program fees, TMCC. Pardon? That's part of consent, but did you
Chair
only make
Brager,
the motion?
I believe that the most recent motion encompassed both consent
Okay,
items.
well, I
which would
only heard
include
A, so that's why I was
2A and
doing
2B.
that. So that was for A and B, correct? Okay, then we'll move on. Sorry, I did not hear the B part of it. Pardon me? Yeah, no, I'm on it, and I'll give you yours. It's here somewhere. It's usually sitting here. Okay, so chair's report and update on committee members regarding audit, compliance, and Title IX efforts, including activities and actions. If any of the Board of Regents or other Nevada system leaders since the last meeting have anything comments, I really don't at this time because everything's been covered. Does anyone on the committee have any comments to our last meeting? Hearing none, we will move on. To item number 4, Disability Resources Center, UNR. President Sandoval.
Yeah. Good morning, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, members of the committee, and greetings to Regent McGrath, and welcome. For the record, Brian Sandoval, President at the University of Nevada, Reno. This agenda item is a follow-up to the audit that was conducted upon the Disability Resource Center at the University of Nevada, Reno. It's my understanding that the Disability Resource Center has favorably responded to all the recommendations of the audit. We do have, I believe in Reno, Shane Carter, who's the director of the Disability Resource Center on campus, who's ready, willing, and able to respond to any questions that the committee may have. Thank you.
So Chair Brager, if I may,
Yes.
I just want to go over real quickly some high-level suggestions that the team noted during that audit, just super high-level summary. So we noted suggestions for improvements in updating the policy and website information for better consistency with Board of Regents policy and federal state laws, strengthening controls related to dual enrollment. So just a better process to better identify, monitor, process dual enrollment students who are receiving accommodations, and also to strengthen some controls related to some expenditures and enhanced tracking of equipment. I totally forgot to say my name, so sorry, Lauren Tripp, Chief Internal Auditor. So that's just kind of a high level of some areas that we have recommendations for during that audit. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Any comments or questions from the committee? Okay. If we could have a motion? Thank you. We have a motion by Regent Del Carlo and a second by Regent Boylan. All those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you very much. Item number 5, Chief Internal Auditor Lauren Tripp will present for approval the report institutional responses to the NSHE Purchasing Card Program audit for the period of July 1st, 2023 through July 30th, 2024. And then the committee will discuss the audit findings and recommendations, may recommend specific action to the Board of Regents and to the Chancellor. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Berger. For the record, Lauren Tripp, Chief Internal Auditor. So this next report is for, as mentioned, NSHE Purchasing Card Program. For this audit, the team suggested converting some department cards to personal cards for better monitoring of expenses, improvements to the process related to deactivation of cards for terminated employees, along with revising the UNR purchasing card manual to be more consistent with BOR policy. Thank you.
Hold on. Any comments or questions from the Audit Committee? Seeing none, is there a motion on this?
Regent Bush, for the record, motion to approve.
A motion by Regent Brooks and a second by Regent Del Carlo. All those in favor signify aye. All those opposed? Seeing none, the motion passes. Item number 6, NSHE Single Audit Findings Update. Chief Internal Auditor Lauren Tripp will present an audit on the findings of the Nevada System of Higher Education Single Audit for the year ending June 30th, 2024. Representatives from CSN will provide an update related to the finding 24-005, addressing measures that have been taken to further diagnose and remedy the issue. Who would you like to speak first? Okay, please do.
Thank you, Chair Berger. For the record, Lauren Tripp, Chief Internal Auditor. So back at the December meeting, there was a question posed by a regent during the external audit presentation if work plans ever come back to the committee to essentially show that those deficiencies have been resolved. There was acknowledgement that the institutions had worked very hard to provide explanations, the institutions, but they want to know if there's a regular follow-through process related to those significant deficiencies, specifically the ones that were mentioned in that single audit report. As a result of that request, I just wanted to provide a quick update, and then I'll toss it to CSN to provide an update on one of their findings. So overall, we did have an increase in the number of findings this year. This can be a result. We had new auditors this year, and they, new eyes, new viewpoints. This is not necessarily a bad thing. We currently have a senior internal auditor within the department who is working on a single audit follow-up audit. So what this entails is she's reviewing each response for each finding, reaching out to each institution, and if they're supporting documentation, reviewing that documentation. She's gone out to meet with certain individuals at the campuses who are responsible for some of those findings. And even if there have been some challenges along the way, I will say that everyone is taking these findings seriously, and they've been actively putting processes in place to resolve them. So I'm expecting for the June meeting that there'll be a report that'll show the finding, the institution response, and then also what we saw during our follow-up review. So that's kind of just a quick update from what we're doing in the department. And I know one finding that was discussed more in detail during the December meeting was the 2024-005 related to CSN and the GO students. So Chair Breger, if I may have a representative from CSN come up to talk a little bit more about that specific finding, because they'll do it much better than myself.
No problem. President Kibler, did you have someone or yourself that was going to address this?
Yeah, this is Bill Kibler, President of CSN. For the record, we have our Vice President for Finance Administration, Rolando Moscata, here, as well as our Vice President for Student Affairs, Juan Avalos, who have both been involved in coordinating our responses. So they are here and available to make a brief presentation and then answer questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Please.
And, pardon me? Okay. I will defer to my colleague Juan Avalos to provide more detail with regards to CSN's response to the Go Student issue.
Good morning, Juan Avalos, VP of Student Affairs at CSN. I have three kind of main points I want to share with you today. One is the update that we're making good progress on our mitigation plan. Two, we have preliminary evidence to suggest that our strategies that we implemented are working. And then three, we have a detailed list of next things to do to further refine what we do and strengthen our position. So let me unpack that a little bit. At the December board meeting, I mentioned that we had a multi-pronged approach to addressing it. Many of the things we did within the institution immediately. A next wave of implementation was we were going to contract with a financial aid consulting firm to come in and do a deep dive into our financial aid processes, the actual work within the financial aid office, and also look at the relationships between other offices that work directly with financial aid, look at the Go Student issue specifically, and then give us some recommendations on how to strengthen. We had that consulting firm come in January. They spent an entire week on our campus, meeting with a lot of people, very thorough review. And in the end, their takeaways, first one was they congratulated the college for acting quickly and doing everything that it could immediately to mitigate things. And then they had 5 strategic recommendations for the college to look at in order to strengthen our processes. And in general, the 5 recommendations, the first one was around kind of interdepartmental communications to make sure that financial aid cashiers and others have ongoing conversations and that the processes are aligned. So that was kind of one component. Another one was just improving some of our financial aid processes. The third one was a recommendation to integrate our financial aid systems with other information systems on our campus, like PeopleSoft and Gray Matter, to ensure that that information flow was more direct. And with that, they also encouraged a little more automation, because most of our very quick actions were people dependent, people heavy, and we agree that it needs to be more computers helping us combat computers. The fourth area was around having fraud prevention task force, cross-functional group from the campus, to make sure that we're continually monitoring the issue, because we know this is something that is not over, that we will have to continue to be vigilant. And then the fifth category was around, they identified specific policies that they gave recommendations on how we could improve them. And then the biggest recommendation within that last one was they encouraged us to implement hire third-party software to add into our application process, real time at point of application, to do identity verification so that we catch potential fraud students up front before they're actually admitted into the college. And so we feel really good about what they've identified, and we're going to be diving into that report and beginning to implement those specific strategies. I mentioned that some of the preliminary evidence we have points to positive signs that our work has led to good things. There's 3 points here. One is, as we look at the numbers of cases, student cases that have to be recalculated for financial aid, look at numbers from last spring to this spring, the number of cases that had to recalculate it were reduced by like 71%. So there's greater efficiency and accuracy there that we're very proud of. When we look at fall to fall, last fall to the previous fall where we didn't have the ghost spike, we even saw some efficiencies there to the tune of 27% less cases that had to be recalculated where aid had to be returned because they were over awarded or there was an error. So these specific strategies show that they're working with ghosts and they're working even in the normal environment. So we feel really strong about that. The third sort of evidentiary piece that we'd like to share that we're very happy about, when we looked at, I shared at the December meeting that we saw the natural trajectory, the numbers of FAFSA applications that were coming in being reviewed, that there was a tremendous spike last year in October, November, December, and January, and that after the mitigation process, this last year, we noticed that the numbers went back to the normal rate, the normal amounts for October, November, and December. So that was all awesome. So the expectation was we wanted to see the same trend in January and February. What we found was, while the numbers also decreased, there was still a high amount of FAFSAs that came through in January. But the awesome thing about that was none of that penetrated our protective system. So even though there was like another spike, all of that got caught in the measures we had implemented. So that gives us extra confidence that what we've implemented is working. And now when you couple that with the strategies that we're getting from the consultant, it's going to make it even stronger, which leads me to the last point. So the next steps for us are, move on those recommendations, begin to implement them. But the most important one, the most critical one, is the implementation of that identity verification protocol, real time at point of application. And we think that's going to be a game changer, and we hope to have that in place for fall. And I will take any questions you have.
Any questions from the committee? Yes, please go ahead, Regent DeCarlo.
Thank you for the update. And when did you get your recommendations? How soon was that? Did that
Got it
report
like
come?
2 days ago.
Oh, okay.
So we haven't dove in, but I wanted to get at least the big headers to let you know a little bit about what's there.
Okay.
And we'll be diving into that
Okay.
document.
And will the school at some point have to pay this money back?
I think my colleague could speak to that, Rolando.
Again, Rolando Mosqueda, Interim Vice President, Finance Administration, College of Southern Nevada, for the record. Yes, the answer is yes, Regent DeCarlo. We will have to reconcile the amount that is bad debt that's currently sitting on CSN's books. As you're probably aware, but I'll emphasize, it's not appropriate or allowed for CSN to utilize any portion of its state allocation or student fees to address this debt. So very likely the source of funding to address the debt related to the ghost student issue will be unrestricted reserves. And we do intend to come back to the board to demonstrate and share that information in terms of that pay down plan with you.
Okay.
I also want to emphasize that the payments that were made to the bad actors with federal funds that CSN had received, specifically Pell Grants, all of that money was returned back to the Department of Education. So there's no risk. There's no risk for the college in that regard. So we've compartmentalized the issue locally at the institution, not jeopardize CSN's standing with the Department of Education for any future disbursement of Pell Grant funds. And again, the issue is isolated right now to CSN's bad debt issue.
And I have a follow-up question to CFO Vitone. So this debt that CSN's going to have because of this ghosting, is that then going to show up on the exceptions report? And we'll follow that on the BFF until it comes to zero? Is that how that would work?
I'd apologize, Chris Fatone, Chief Financial Officer. I need to take a look at the accounts that are affected by it, but to the extent that that this corresponds to student receivable, that revenue is likely not allocated to the account, so it's more of an internal accounting of how they're replacing those revenues that were not collected from the students versus I'd have to look at the source for the repayment to the federal government, because that's likely the balance that would be in deficit at the moment. And I can confirm that if you would, and get back to you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Regent Boylan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks for all this information. I have two questions. And the first one is, we all are really interested, I'm sure, all of us, in accountability. How did we get to this point, that we are in this mess? Because if we don't know how we got here, it's going to happen again, right?
Sure.
Or do we have a way to hold people accountable, or is it just, oh, push, it's gone, it's done, money, we'll get the money? So how did we get to this position?
Again, Rolando Mosqueda for the record, Interim Vice President, Finance Administration, CSN.
Thank you.
Specific to your question, Regent Boylan, in terms of accountability, CSN takes this issue very seriously as an institution. This is an area of focus and concern. We devote a lot of resources to make sure we're combating the issue. So I want to make sure you feel assured that the accountability rests with the institution. We recognize that. Secondly, how did we get here? We've dissected the chain of events that occurred prior to a full realization of the magnitude of the Go Student issue. And there is an opportunity for myself, Dr. Avalos, and Dr. Kibler to prepare a brief to share that with you so that there's a reassurance that CSN has done its due diligence to understand, again, to your question, how we got here.
Okay, good.
I'd like to, so to answer your question, if I understand your question correctly, at the core of the issue is we were attacked. So the core of the issue isn't something CSN was necessarily doing specifically that created it. I think there were exposures that were there, but we were attacked externally by forces who were trying to defraud the college. And there's certain characteristics, certain elements that heighten that. I think for CSN, one of the elements is we are a large institution that's open access. And when you have open access, there's less requirements you have of people, there's less checkpoints, you can dive in. And what we found was a lot of when we started to look at the characteristics of the people coming through, we were noticing some trends in the characteristics that were coming in as transfer students. In part because if you're a new student, there's protocols you have to follow, so there's ways to verify you and filter you out. Transfer student process don't really have that, so they tested all the fences, found weaknesses, and then attacked. We noticed it, we responded, we created filters to try to protect that. We launched identity verification pieces, so where I think some of the liability for us that strengthened was in some of our protocols, but the actual act itself was an external attack to try to, get into these sources of funds. I don't know if I answered your question.
I get that, and I like that. You said attack. So, two things. Firstly, why were we not prepared for the attack? I like what the young man said there. Our due diligence, so we have to do our due diligence. Why were we not prepared for that attack? And then when they attacked, why didn't we have a counterattack ready?
Yeah.
Someone has to be held responsible, because I've noticed in NSHE, we always say, oh yeah, we're doing good, everybody did great, and everybody keeps their jobs.
Yeah.
I mean, it's taxpayers' money, and it's a lot of time we spend just driving here today nearly killed me. I nearly turned around and went back. So I come here for certain reasons. I come here to make sure that the taxpayers' money is not being spent willy-nilly, and it'll be, there was an attack, there was no counterattack, there was, the periphery was weak and we penetrated. Who's been held responsible for that? And I know the young man said, we are taking care of, it'll be looked into, but I still didn't get any answers.
Yeah.
So there's no accountability. Is that what you're telling me? No one's been held accountable as usual in NSHE. As usual, really. No one's been held accountable, right?
I'll respond to your question of noticing and responding.
Thank you, yeah.
So in the fall, we began to see an uptick in questionable things, but the numbers were small, and they were they aligned with what we've always had. You always have a level of activity in this front. And anytime we saw little pockets, we were following the protocols of submitting to Inspector General, sending things forward to Department of Ed to take a look at it. And so there was no signal in the fall that this was coming in this magnitude. So the way our timelines are set, individuals who are going to register for the spring, they do so in the fall, right?
Yeah.
They do it ahead of time.
Right.
And once they've registered, then they're essentially in. We received the first signal that this was the magnitude that it was on the first day of classes in spring, when students actually had to show up, right? Prior to that, they appear like real students in our data system. There's nothing there to suggest that they're not. But day one, we had instructors saying, I have a full class and no one's here.
I see.
So at that point, we have a problem, but they were already in. We couldn't get them out. And so part of the challenge was there were some policy issues we needed to in place to give us that authority to pull people out. And we implemented those in the spring, so we had that authority and power, for summer and for fall, which is why this was contained to spring. So we were caught off guard because of how it came. There was no way of seeing it. Once it came, we responded, and we've sort of taken, and good things are gonna come from it.
Okay.
But I
So-
understand your point, and I appreciate it.
So we're prepared now for that, so
Yes.
it won't happen again.
Correct.
But no one will be held accountable either.
If it happens again, you can hold me accountable.
I'll hold you accountable. All right, thank you. So, go ahead,
Regent
President.
Boylan, Bill Kibler, President of CSN for the record. It's also another reason why we chose to bring in an external financial aid evaluator.
I
So
see.
that we had a third party come from the outside to look at our processes, what we did. Presumably, if someone had actually failed in their job or
Right.
functioned inappropriately, that would have been uncovered. That was not uncovered. The things that they were looking at were some inadequacies based on just the reality of these attackers get ever more sophisticated every
yeah.
single semester.
Right,
They found some vulnerabilities at CSN because we are such a large community college and we are open access. And so that made us unique as a subject of this attack, and it happened. As was shared earlier, the external evaluators actually praised how quickly we caught it and how quickly we shut that down. But nothing in the report indicates that we had a failure of an individual staff member or someone else to do their job and be attentive to the kinds of things that should have been happening. I've been a part of a previous institution that had a malware attack or whatever, and nobody failed to do their job. It was our turn. The bad guys actually targeted CSN in this case. Didn't take long for a bunch of them to get in the window before we shut it down. But
Nice.
again, that was one of the advantages of bringing a third party rather than us just evaluating ourselves
right,
to
right.
see whether or not we had some failure to perform. And the external reviewers have not uncovered that, but they have given us a lot of sound recommendations of things we can do to further strengthen our systems to make sure we're protected going forward.
Thank you, Dr. Kibler. Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate that. Thank you so much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. What I would like to do, and I'm just going to bring this up now so that we know, on items like this, that we want some more feedback instead of new business, it'll be good that we set a time, whether it's a next meeting, and we'll decide as we move along to see how many items there are, that there would be an update report. So I think that would be good, and we can have it also discretion of our audit team and chief internal advisor, but I believe that it'd be good for the next meeting that we would have an update on this item. Okay, Regent Del Carlo.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and you took away my new business item because I'd already written that one down. But first of all, this stuff happens every day, all over the world, and like you said, it's kind of like our turn. And I really appreciate the fact you brought in an external auditor or experts to really sift through to see, and you got the 5 bullet points that you'll now work on. But my question, I don't know who this goes to, but okay, CSN got attacked. We have 7 other institutions, not with students, so 6 other institutions. So what are our other institutions doing to prevent this? I know I had talked to, at some point I had talked to President Dinelli. They had seen something. So can we just ask the presidents, because I think this is really, really important, because this is a big amount of money that the college is gonna have to pay off. And I'm glad it doesn't come from student fees, and I'm glad it doesn't come from state, but it still has to be paid off. And it is money that could have gone to so many other good things. But if we could just ask the presidents what they're doing to learn from this. We've got to have some best practices here. Thank you.
And I appreciate that. We can have that, but please just, I'm certain it can be a 30-second.
Yeah, but something brief, just making sure you were all aware.
Yeah,
Please, go ahead. We can just start.
thank you. Karen Hilgersum, TMCC, for the record. I heard of these cyber attacks a couple of years ago when I was at a very innovative conference for presidents in California. And what I learned was California colleges have lost millions and millions of dollars and responded by contracting with relatively new software companies who are helping us fight these cyber attacks. So of course I raced back to my college campus and said, what are we doing here? Because we can't have this happen to us. And so we at the time did extra manual processes to ensure that we were having a double check verification system. And now we're seriously looking into some additional contracts as well. That was possible for TMCC because we're mid-sized. Very, very difficult for a much, much larger institution such as the College of Southern Nevada. But sadly, these attacks are not uncommon. They're happening now with Bitcoin companies, and it's sort of similar. The bots come in and they fool us. And I'm just glad I went to this conference a couple of years ago, or I probably wouldn't have known. Thank you.
Thank you. And just a point of reference before we go on. I mean, this happens at Valley Hospital System was shut down. MGM was shut down. So it's not that they did anything until it happens. It's one of those things until it happens. To your point, Regent Boylan, they can't correct it because it's something, they can do things for roadblocks, but as stated, these people know how to get around the roadblock. Every time you put a roadblock in, that's what I call it, they get around it. If you want to briefly share that I'm certain they're all aware of it from what happened at CSN, but I'm not trying to not listen to you, but we do have meetings that follow this meeting.
For the record, Dr. Amber Dinelli, president at Great Basin College, and I would just echo what President Hilgerson has said. I can tell you that we use OnBase as part of our application process. It weeds out the majority of some of these false bad actors, which has helped us. And then we also put things in place where we don't release financial aid until 3 weeks prior. Our faculty have to report if we have students who haven't participated in class. That saves us there. And then we also go back and anybody who isn't on a payment plan, address those. And we were able to whittle it down. I mean, in the fall, out of 3,500 students, we were able to kind of whittle it down to 11. But it's very time intensive. It's very difficult for small schools to do that. And I can't imagine that on a much larger scale with CSN. Thank you.
President Dell.
Yeah, hi, Kyle Dalpy, Western Nevada College. Couple things just to add to that. It is difficult as a small institution as well. One of the things that we have done is put in place a new enrollment application overall that gets checked. But the one piece I'll mention, any financial aid students who are new to WNC and online only have to do an identity verification form, which is an added security measure. So that's helping to stop some of it. And on our application alone, the new application, we have stopped a significant number of false applications coming in the first place.
Thank you. President Pollard.
Good morning, Darian Pollard for the record. I would just offer two things. One is that, as has been described, and I think President Kibler hit this, this has been a particular challenge for open access-based institutions. This has been an issue happening in community college space for the last 5 to 7 years. And as President Hilgerson indicated, they found a particular weakness based on the matriculation patterns of community college students. So it has not affected four-year institutions as much as it has community colleges because of that. With that in mind, three things that I think all of us are doing. more education and training, which is essential to helping employees do the work that I think our colleagues did a very good job of at CSN, working very thoughtfully around automation, as has been raised, and then looking to do the technology enhancements as resources allow. Thank you.
Thank you, President Sandoval.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you to Regent Del Carlo. And when this came up, I believe it was in December, I had the same reaction that Regent Boylan had. And so we immediately went back to see what our controls are. And so I have a list of those of what we do. And the first, applications come through Slate and do not enter into PeopleSoft without review. A personal recruiter involvement with prospective students weeds out false applications. We review carefully unusual patterns. So last year we had 75 applications from Uzbekistan, and obviously that was an outlier. So at this time, most ghost applications originate internationally. Even though international students are not eligible for federal aid, they can be eligible for institutional aid. So again, we pay close attention to that. There are multiple review stages by our financial aid team and multiple acceptance steps by students of financial aid offers. We do not allow new students to register without all documents submitted, transcripts, immunizations, test scores, or placement test. If they don't have a test score, and virtually all students meet with an advisor before classes start. So there is a 10-check system that we have, and so we feel good about where we are. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And first I'll say congratulations for Officer in Charge and Mr. Heavey.
Thank you, Regent Brager. I'll just say that we have parallel processes to UNR. This isn't as difficult for the more selective institutions because it's a much more onerous application process. Our CFO also had his controller reach out to CSN after this experience that they had to learn lessons from them. So I think we're pretty well positioned for this. Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Yes, sir.
Quick question, thank you. This just brings me to the point, I don't know who's going to answer this as the head of computer services or someone, maybe you can. Do we have our own red teams penetrating our systems so that we can find out what's wrong? I never heard that from anyone, but it's extremely important that we have. If we don't, can we do something about that? It's a request to all of your presidents and to CSC, computer science, SC, whatever it is, but could we develop something like that we have our own red teams? And they will find our weaknesses, and I tell you, that's the best. This is very dear to my heart because I've done some of this. So that's the way to find it, not wait till it happens and then get outsiders to help us out. Does that make sense a wee bit? Thank you so much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
If there's no other questions or comments, this was a information-only item. We would move on to item number 7, Internal Audit Department Work Plan and Status Report for NSHE. Chief Auditor Lauren Tripp will present for approval the Internal Audit Work Plan for the 6-month period ending June 30th, 2025, and the Internal Audit Department Status Report for the 6-month period ending December 31st, 2024.
Thank you, Chair Brager. Lauren Tripp, Chief Internal Auditor. For this item, over time, we used to present the audit work plan on an annual basis, but that's now shifted to biannually. We did this to allow more flexibility. As you all know, priorities and risks can change quite rapidly. So this allows us to be more agile and flexible, and it also creates a more realistic snapshot of what we plan to work on, what's in progress, and what we have completed. So on pages 3 and 4, this describes a bit how the plan was put together and the measures we've taken to ensure there is agility and flexibility in the plan. There's obviously a huge area, a bunch of areas we could audit, but obviously limited resources. So how is this work plan put together? So it's a combination of a few factors. So first, we have our risk assessment matrix, and I won't get too into the technicalities of that, but if you really want to nerd out or geek out with me, please feel free to make it. We can set up a meeting and I can go over all the logistics of that. So what that is it will contain all the possible areas that we could audit across NSHE, and that's considered the audit universe. Then each of those areas will be ranked on a variety of different risks. It could be financial risks, so along those lines, think revenues and expenses. So if that number is higher for that area, it'll obviously have a higher ranking. IT and IT risk, health and safety risk. So for health and safety, you would expect obviously a higher number for maybe school dental medicine as opposed to financial aid. So things like that. So it's a calculation, there's some weighted calculation involved in it, and certain audits will rise to the top based on their risk. So what I did want to note is that it's not as systematic of we'll audit an area every 10 years. This is a risk assessment, so it's based on risk. We also solicit input from business officers and other constituents. The last thing we want to do is audit an area that they think is a complete waste of time. That's not what we want to do by any means. So areas that will add value. We've had some really great suggestions over the years from these individuals. We also have some required audits. Per board policy, host has to be audited annually, along with change in leadership audits, and that would be at the president level or above. We also take into consideration the hotline submissions coming in. Is there an area that it's clearly different individuals where it's like, maybe we should look at that, indicating a larger concern? Is this even something we can audit? And we also take into consideration things such as the external audit. So as I mentioned a little bit earlier, we're doing a follow-up audit on the single audit. Another thing is we keep our ears open for other concerns. So this could include requests during meetings. There's some fees audits on that work plan that you will see that was a request of a special meeting. Also issues across the country. We have a membership to ACUA, which is the Association of College and University Auditors. There's a really great forum that they talk about audit. Hey, has anybody done an audit like this? Or I'm encountering this issue. So it's a great resource to see what might be some hot items. So as you can see, there's quite a variety of different areas that we need to consider when developing our work plan. A huge part of what we strive to do is add value and provide services beyond that of just a traditional audit, so also advisory services. So I'm going to just go briefly over some highlights and themes. The work plan has time built into the budget for training. This is to help us stay relevant, and it should be expected. We need to continue to educate ourselves and learn the necessary skills to help our clients, which is the institutions. There's also some extra, more time built into that this year than last year because with the new IIA global standards going live in January, making sure staff is knowledgeable and that we're in compliance. The themes may look very familiar since those continue to remain points of importance. So responsiveness, as things come up, how can we best address those things in a timely manner? Is there a way we can increase our analysis in a certain area? Where can we help that will make the difference? Also, I mentioned quite briefly, but focusing on realigning internal audit objectives, ensuring compliance with the new standards. Then collaboration with other groups still remains crucial. So think groups like legal, HR, Title IX. As much as I would love to say we're an expert in all those areas, I sadly am not. And right now, I'm not going to steal another group's thunder, but there's an ongoing ERM project, what I also think is going to help align risks, help mitigate risks from a bunch of groups. The hotline continues to be a resource. We facilitate cases to proper subject matter experts, respond in a timely manner. AI and data analytics. This one we have not really started yet, but I've had some discussions with SCS on exploring this area, how we can approach incorporating this into our audit processes. It's also a balance. So you don't want to be spending $100,000 on a software for 5 people in a department. So where's, cost benefit? But there are really cool ways where you can test an entire population or pick a better sample with certain software. So we do have some meetings set up later this month with our current audit software vendor to discuss additional capabilities and resources. So we continue to run lean. This is a major priority for this year to get staffing back up. The team has been really great about cross-pollinating. So usually what we'll have is we have the Reno-based auditors and Vegas-based auditors, but we've been doing a lot of rotating where the Reno is auditing Vegas and Vegas will be auditing some Reno audits coming up. And then lastly, on page 7, you'll see some charts and graphs tracking our open findings at the institutions. These are unresolved findings where we now show 5-year trends. You'll see the direction that graph is going, and you'll see that we're able to close out some findings since the last meeting that have been open for a while. And I'll say that most of the remaining open items have to do with policy changes, which obviously is a longer process to get those through. So overall, this committee started to formally track and monitor those open exceptions. It's made a difference. It's been a useful metrics we have from an internal audit perspective, because them institutions closing those out shows that management's buying in, that those findings, willingness to accept those recommendations as we partner with them. And with that, that concludes my remarks for the work plan and status report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any comments or questions from the committee? Seeing none, this is an action item. Is there a motion to accept what our internal auditor has said? Regent Del Carlo? Regent Batista? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, we'll go to item number 8. Ready for another one? Internal audit compliance and Title IX updates for NSHE. Chief Auditor Lauren Tripp will provide general remarks regarding department updates, initiatives, and alignment related to ongoing risk assessments, including incident management processes and metrics. No specific action is requested on this item, although we can always have feedback and questions. Please go ahead on item number 8.
Thank you, Chair Breger. Lauren Tripp, Chief Internal Auditor. I really should have thought this out without me talking for like 20 minutes straight. So sorry, you get a lot of Lauren all in a row. So this section is a standing item. It's just basically to provide some updates in the department, placeholder for discussion, things such as financial aid related findings, risk assessment, other board initiatives. So between this meeting and next, we will have had, so between March and June, we will have had our kickoff with our external auditors, which I'm pretty sure I'm making the controllers cringe in the background because I feel like we just finished this process. But we will have had our kickoff by the next meeting. In January 2025, the new II standards went live. Some standards, they contain items that are forward-looking. So that could include, there's things such as in employee evals, you have to address honesty, or one of the things that we have just started implementing since those went live is surveys. So if you get a survey from me, it's legit. Will be post-audit, and it's very helpful to receive feedback on, is there something, maybe you thought we should have looked at something and we didn't, or just feedback's a great thing. Also, the IA has also started to release what they call topical requirements. So these are new mandatory components of the International Professional Practices Framework. The first one they released is a cybersecurity topical requirement, and that was in February, so it'll be effective 12 months after that. There was also a request during the December committee meeting to task the chancellor to work with the institution presidents and the campus communities to clarify the types of issues that should be submitted to the NSHE hotline versus available resources for students and faculty at the campus level. This was to help the volume of NSHE submissions received at NSHE, where a lot of times there was a better resource available on campus. Working with the chancellor, an email was sent to the institution president, so I just wanted to take a quick moment to thank the presidents for their acknowledgement and receptiveness to that email. A lot of you even provided dates when you plan to send out additional information, or even newsletters and resources, so I just wanted to say a quick thank you. And lastly, staffing. So I will say that every webinar I'm on lately, it seems like there's a poll question along the lines of what are the top challenges you're currently facing concerning your internal audit program. And the top 2 are usually talent shortage and evolving needs in areas like analytics and cybersecurity. So I will say we are no exception. We're still down in numbers, but this week we had some senior internal auditor interviews. So we're moving through that process. Once we're stabilizing quite a bit down the line, plan to work on relaunching our internship program that we had many years ago. It was very successful. We actually hired on an intern long ago, and they're still within NSHE, and I just think it's as somebody who was an intern long ago, it's amazing real on-hand experience, and I know it helped me launch into my first job by having those networking opportunities. And very last thing is, I had some good news last meeting that we had hired a Reno internal audit manager, but for this meeting, I kind of have some sad news that she will be returning to her former employer. It's not my tale to tell, but an opportunity came up that she couldn't refuse. So I just wanted to take a moment to thank Madison Cicados on record. Even though she was with our department for such a brief time, and I'm really bummed about losing her, I just appreciate her so much for the time within our department. She really helped me out a lot, so thank you.
Thank you for that. This is information only. Does anyone have any comments or questions on what was just shared? Okay, plus it was all in our backup material. Okay, item number 9, new business. Is there any regent on the committee that has any new business? We took away Carol's, but, or Regent DeCarlo, excuse me. Seeing, and everyone, those that heard the conversation in regards to bringing back those items, we'll just do it as an informational item in our meetings. We'll go to public comment. Once again, is there any public comment in Elko?
There is none at this time.
Thank you. Any public comment in Reno?
No, there is not.
Thank you. Is there any public comment here at Nevada State University? Seeing none. SCS, is there any public comment on the phone?
No callers at this time.
Thank you. Seeing none, this meeting is in adjournment.